Welcome to the Comfy Chairs, a podcast from 123 Limited. This is Kate. Today's episode is the first of a new series for 2025 that I'm calling Comfy Chairs Hard Questions. comfyHQ for short. Normally, when we have a seat in the comfy chairs, it's for an in-depth conversation about leading and learning. My guests and I dive into current workplace trends and foundational skills, knowledge, and abilities for leaders and learners. These long-form episodes will always be the cornerstone of this podcast. And I'd like to do more. And that's where the idea for comfyHQ came from, creating a bite-sized offering to help grow our knowledge of leading and learning. For these shorter episodes, I want to provide you with the opportunity to share your questions. They can include asking for more information about specific episode topics or how to tackle day-to-day leadership challenges. Any subject that fits in the beautifully broad category of leading and learning is suitable. So I'll do my best to share what I know, and if all goes well, we will learn together. For today's answer from comfyHQ, we're going to look at a question about relationships and direct reports. I don't like one of my direct reports. How can I manage them? This is a great question, for no other reason than we just won't like everyone we work with. Learning how to work with people you don't connect with, or maybe even outright dislike, is an important skill. And like most skills, it's extra important for leaders. Why is that? Because leadership requires that we treat each person on the team with the same dignity and respect. And if you have a long career in leadership, it's just about guaranteed that you will eventually have someone on your team who isn't to your liking. The good news? You don't have to like everyone. That being said, you do have to be professional and kind. Let's assume here that the employee in question is not doing anything illegal, immoral, or unethical. It would have to be addressed through formal channels. They're not violent or harassing anyone. There is no malice or bad intent. Those instances would be a matter to take to your HR team or compliance department. Instead of being a genuinely bad actor, we're supposing this is someone who is simply unlikable, maybe a little unpleasant, or kind of sour. Before I talk about how to manage this unlikable employee, let's start with you, the leader. What's going to be important in this situation is starting with your awareness. Can you recognize the feelings you experience when interacting with this person, and are you managing your own behavior? Using your awareness to pay attention to your actions is key. There's no excuse for a leader to be rude or disrespectful to any employee, even the ones who annoy, frustrate, or challenge you. Every member of your team has intrinsic value and is worthy of your respect. So first, manage your behaviors and how you treat this employee. Next, if you find yourself feeling disliked toward a member of your team, it's a good time to pause and reflect on what could be causing it. What specifically do you dislike? It's not tons of fun to consider why we dislike another person, but you have to face it. So what flavor of dislike are you experiencing? Name it. Is it anger, frustration, disgust? Be very honest with yourself. Giving a name to something helps you to understand it. What exactly does this person do that causes this response in you? You need to be able to describe it for yourself. You also need to be objective and very clear. Don't interpret the person's behaviors or make assumptions. If you're telling yourself, Maud is just so rude, you still have work to do. You need to get clear on the behaviors you observe. Maud interrupts someone in every meeting, or Maud repeatedly leaves a mess for the next shift that puts them behind. Or she's been gossiping about Jim's divorce even after I addressed our behavior expectations with her. I hope you hear a theme in these descriptions. Each example is about how the employee's behaviors are connected to their work, meetings, peer relationships, standards and policies, even productivity. As a people manager, your perspective needs to be about the work. If you can't connect the employee problem to a business problem, well, then you might be the problem. Because once you've identified the behaviors that bother you, then you have another difficult question to ask yourself. What have I done about this? Basically, what part of the employee's unlikability might actually be your response to how you have behaved? If the employee is consistently late on deadlines, is it because they're disorganized or incompetent? Or is it because you don't set reasonable timelines? This is one of the hardest parts of leadership, owning the behaviors of others and seeing your team's actions as a direct result of what you do or fail to do. It's hard work. And it's worth it. So you've assessed yourself, your feelings and behaviors. You've objectively evaluated the employee's behaviors and honestly considered your own part in the relationship. What next? The simple solution to managing an employee you dislike is to start with kindness. Ask yourself, how can I be kind today? Really, that's the answer. Be kind. Now, being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. You can be kind and give difficult feedback. You can be kind while addressing significant performance issues. Kind and direct are not mutually exclusive. Neither are kind and assertive or kind and management. Kindness is what can motivate and inform your actions to be the best manager a difficult employee can have. This is a really nuanced topic. There are many ways to talk about navigating the employee-manager relationship, especially when it isn't going well. I've focused on some first steps in the time I have today, but I recognize that managing a direct report you don't like may be more complicated than what I've outlined. Personalities, past encounters, external pressures, personal histories, workplace conditions. There are so many factors that can influence how we relate to the people we work with. What matters here is that as a leader, you start by adding yourself to the equation. The relationships you have with your team are not outside of you or beyond your control. You may never get to a place where you feel genuine like for this person. But if you are managing your own actions, connecting concerns back to work expectations, and starting with kindness, you can't go wrong. Okay, here is our second question. How can you lead people who are more experienced or knowledgeable than you are? I love addressing this question as a companion to the ask about managing someone you don't like, because it lets us highlight a fundamental truth of good leadership. And that's this: every employee deserves your respect in equal measure. It's non-negotiable. Which is one way to say at a foundational level, you will lead more experienced people just like you lead everyone else. Now, that's basic. Let's talk a little bit about a few first steps you can take to do this well. An essential leadership practice is to understand the strengths and needs of your employees. What are they great at? What are their preferences? What parts of the job do they enjoy the most, the least? What are their aspirations? What is their favorite ice cream flavor? You should investigate and remember this type of information across the board for every employee. In fact, you should also know all of this about yourself, which includes your own strengths and gaps. Because, and here's the fun part, when you get to lead people who have more experience and knowledge than you do, you have access to their expertise. So you want to celebrate this and then start learning from them. Now, this can certainly be easier said than done. Being faced with direct reports who have more experience, more education, or even simply more tenure can be intimidating. It is a sure way to bring your insecurities to the surface, and fear and imposter syndrome will likely follow close behind. So, how to overcome this barrier so you can lead effectively? Start by naming the feeling. Get clear about what exactly it is that you're experiencing. Be honest with yourself. It's okay to acknowledge that you feel intimidated by Nicholas because he's been in the department for 10 years longer than anyone else and has been a top performer the entire time. Or it's okay to acknowledge that you keep comparing yourself to Tanya, who has the advanced degree you don't, and also has the audacity to have amazing hair. It really is totally okay to have these very human feelings. What's never okay is to treat these people differently because of how you feel. It can also help to get clear about the purpose of individual contributor roles and management roles. The essential functions of each are essentially different. You know this. Doing the work and leading the work are not the same thing. And this means that the experience and knowledge needed to work as an individual contributor, well, it can be unnecessary for the leader, and vice versa. One of the many reasons you have a team is the fact that you can't do it all or know it all. A leader does not need to be the smartest person in the room. A leader does need to recognize when their smarts aren't enough and then go find those smarter people. It's the calculus of leadership, constantly creating the right and sufficient blend of skills, knowledge, and abilities, including and beyond your own, that will meet the needs of the job. And that's just one reason it is so awesome to have people with more experience and knowledge on your team. You have those other smarts in place. You and the rest of the team have the expertise you need ready to hand. You can get to work on the true mechanics of leading. That's learning the people, setting clear expectations, monitoring progress, providing feedback and recognition, asking the team what they need, removing barriers, and delivering resources every day. In fact, if you think about it, those experts actually make your job easier. How amazing is that? That's all for this comfyHQ episode. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for listening. Comfy Chairs Hard Questions episodes will be out every other week, in between in-depth conversations about leading and learning. If you have a question for the Comfy Chairs, I would love to hear it. Just use the link in the show notes. Next week, I'll be back for a conversation about grief and loss with Justin Clifford, CEO of Bereave. I hope you join us.